As two Chinese nationals have been charged with smuggling a potential agro-terrorism weapon into the U.S.
This is really insane. Lucas Thomason joins us live in Washington with the details. Good morning, Lucas.
Good morning, guys. A Chinese researcher at the University of Michigan and her boyfriend have been accused of smuggling a biological pathogen into the United States that can cause devastating diseases in crops. FBI Director Kash Patel says, quote, "This case is a sobering reminder that the Chinese Communist Party continues to deploy operatives and researchers to infiltrate our institutions and target our food supply, an act that could cripple our economy and endanger American lives. I commend the FBI Detroit Division and our partners at CBP for stopping this biological threat before it could do real damage." There's a photo of that fungus that was discovered at the Detroit airport in July. The small clumps of red plant material were discovered in these 4 plastic baggies tucked into a wad of tissues. According to court documents, the 34-year-old Chinese boyfriend intentionally hid the samples in his backpack because he knew there were restrictions on importing them.
Alright, so we got China, who we just had this big ordeal with in terms of the tariffs. We just gave them such amnesty. Come to find out, they've got people flying over biological weapons into our country. I don't know what is going on, but China really, obviously this isn't the first time they've used bioweaponry against us. COVID-19, does that ring a bell for anybody? And it literally is sourced from the same place where these fungi samples came from. They're from Wuhan, which is where COVID began. Now, I know Donald Trump just made an agreement with China when it comes to the tariffs. They're paying 55%. And we're only paying 10% on theirs. But, man, if they're going to be having people flying items and mailing items that are potentially going to wipe out our crops and our livelihoods, we don't need to be accepting their students into our place. It's simple as that, bro. Like, they're putting our lives at risk on purpose. And no one seems to be paying any attention, which is why I brought this story back up. It's been covered. It came out 2 weeks ago, but here we are. I'm going to put y'all on game. Let's see what's happening.
Vomiting, liver damage, and reproductive defects in both humans and livestock. What were they doing with this? Why were they trying to bring this into our country? Now, according to a U.S. Attorney's office in Michigan, the 34-year-old Chinese researcher who works at the University of Michigan intentionally hid the samples in his backpack because he knew that the restrictions on importing them existed. The professor claims he had hoped to do further research on the fungus at his University of Michigan lab. FBI Director Kash Patel says, quote, "This case is sobering. It's a reminder that the Chinese Communist Party continues to deploy operatives and researchers to infiltrate our institutions and target our food supply, an act that could cripple our economy and endanger American lives. Smuggling a known agro-terrorism agent into the U.S. is not just a violation of law, it's a direct threat to national security." Now, the details.
Now, knowing all that and them saying all that, how come we haven't heard anything in approximately 14 days when it comes to this situation and circumstance? This affects all of us. If they manage to do whatever testing in our facilities and release that on our land, that could have knocked out an exorbitant amount of crops, and we would have been in the doldrums. Now imagine if we had all this rioting and shit going on and barely any food. Survival of the fittest. We would have been natural selection it up all day, every way, no matter what. This is a very dangerous circumstance and can lead to a bio-apocalypse. But let me, go ahead. Y'all keep wanting to buy a Switch 2 and shit and be ignorant. Let me continue this.
Details here are chilling. I have the complaint here. Carrier Bond pulled out some really interesting details, Emily. So listen to this. Juan is the woman. There was the boyfriend and girlfriend. So Juan's the woman. The FBI has evidence that she had done this before. She had worked with someone else to smuggle in the same pathogen. She gave the other person detailed instructions on how to smuggle it in a book and said there are usually no problems. Rest assured, I have mailed these before. So you wonder how many times she's done this. And then she lied on her visa, saying she was studying a topic distinct from the use of this pathogen. This raises all kinds of questions about subterfuge and frequency.
Absolutely. Look, this is absolutely frightening. And most frightening is how under the prior administration, this stuff was just swept under the rug in terms of the perceived and actual threat. Now, we know under the Trump first administration that Secretary of State Pompeo deployed a maximum pressure against China in all of those arenas. He saw and articulated that the threats to our intellectual property, our college campuses, our physical military bases, and so much more was profound and real. And if you look at the DOJ history of prosecutions and arrests, it was sky high because they were deploying resources toward this articulated threat. Cut to the Biden administration, and I guess everything's awesome. And now we're seeing the fruits of that investment by the CCP. This is on the heels as well of University of Michigan, other students that were arrested and prosecuted for counter surveillance, and so much more. So look, this dovetails in with the topic as well of the visas and the college campuses of the students, right? And over 27.
See, and this is what I'm talking about. It dovetails into this conversation with the visas and students. But Trump, as soon as they signed that tariff deal, and I voted for Trump, as soon as they signed that tariff deal, he gave Chinese students and Xi Jinping all the amnesty to come right back to our fucking facilities of higher education. We've also learned that the CCP is backing these riots that are happening across our country, being funded by CCP. They're burning effigies and beating effigies of Trump and decapitating them and all that. And Trump's just like, it's all good. We figured out a deal for tariffs. We don't see, and this is what MAG is about. I don't agree with any fucking thing he's doing in terms of China. He's being way too damn nice. They've tried to kill us outright multiple times by now. But y'all want to play Donkey Kong Bonanza. Fuck out of here.
7% of foreign students being from China. And there's the direct correlation is obviously not China related. It's CCP related. And the fact that this administration now sees this for what it is and is dedicated to preventing this kind of thing is so relieving. But we have to know that the seeds have been planted and really buried deep under the prior administration. So for me, this is one in what is likely the tip of the iceberg.
I think you're right. Sadly, Laura, when you look at this woman's background, she got Chinese government funding for her work. And not only that, some of the information that she had on her said there was membership and loyalty to the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah, I think the overall takeaway is something that we've heard Donald Trump talk about for a long time. I think, you look at China, you look at the CCP, this is our greatest geopolitical foe, I think, in the entire world. I did an interview for my show this weekend with John Radcliffe, the CIA director. He said they are specifically looking and putting so much investment in China because they are such a big threat. When I look at this and I think about what it says there, that it could take out livestock, that it could take out all of our food supply, it could cause reproductive issues for humans. This is an overall push, I believe, from the CCP to try and take down the United States of America. There's a book called The 100-Year Marathon, and it details the fact that China has in the background been waging this kind of silent war that most Americans don't know about to try and usurp America as a superpower of the world. This seems like another step in that direction. Look at TikTok in China. These kids are all learning how to play, the cello, the violin. They're doing things to improve themselves. Look at it in America. We're teaching our kids to twerk. Look at the education between China and America. They have surpassed our American students long ago. When you look at this, you look at China.
She just made a really great point. It took a moment to kind of respond there, but yeah, they're teaching them how to build things, how to facilitate the future in a conductive manner and on TikTok. And Donald Trump keeps pushing this TikTok ban outward. But TikTok here, it calls for the assassination of Donald Trump. It encourages abortions. It fanaticizes the LA riots and anti-ICE protesters. It congratulates Luigi Mangione. And none of this shit helps Trump whatsoever. Just because TikTok was a factor in his getting reelected, it doesn't mean it is that important that we should keep things around that are directly detrimental to the American public. Now, if they figure out a deal to break the tech away from the CCP in China and keep TikTok running exclusively on American, tech, shit, I mean, maybe, but I mean, it'll probably just become a big source for Big Brother activity. Let's continue.
Buying up farmland, and then I look at something like this. To me, it says this is another step in China trying to take over America as a superpower.
Yeah, and John Radcliffe, the perfect person to talk to. He was a part of the first Trump administration when they were taking on Confucius Institutes on college campuses. Right. So they've been on this for a long time. You know, Ari, the most chilling detail of this 25-page complaint is this. There's an interesting WeChat exchange between this young woman and her boyfriend. 1 week before she smuggled the pathogen into the United States, or he did, he told his girlfriend, once this is done, everything else will be easy. To which she replied, my seedlings are not usable yet. You could read that any which way, but it's a chilling way to read it when you compound it with the symptoms that Laura mentioned, reproductive birth defects, if this got out into the U.S. population.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing more from law enforcement when they get into the details of this today. How deep does this go? What do they suspect? But what this takes me back to is after September 11th. After September 11th, the CIA concluded, and they said to the White House, that it's not a question of if, it's a question of when there will be a second attack. And the second attack that we feared the most and prepared the hardest to prevent was a biological attack, because that can cause the greatest destruction. And don't forget, we're dealing with a China that regularly hacks and infiltrates America's industrial infrastructure. They have made it a state business to get inside American systems, to disrupt them, to steal from us, to take, to harm us, not to mention what they've done with fentanyl, to poison us.
Obviously, it's fentanyl he's referring to. The China being in our systems and whatnot, I don't know if you guys recall the story, but they were saying all the solar panels and many of the electric generators that we have Chinese built kill switches installed in their programming. What does that mean? That means that China at any given point remotely can shut off the machinery that they built. Now, if that's in such things as solar panels, dude, how much other appliances do we have that's made by China? Shit, I mean, even on the Nintendo Switch too, they're openly talking about the ability to brick your console if you cross certain lines when it comes to their terms of service or how you utilize the machine you paid for. And you guys keep ignoring this stuff. It's going to come back and bite us in our ass. This is why we need things to be made, manufactured, and sold by hard-working Americans. Our stuff needs to be made here. There's no other discussion to be had. Let's finish this up.
This is the China we deal with. And if this does turn out to be, if the investigators say, if the Department of Justice reveals that this does appear to be tied to a biological attack, I don't know what the next step has to be with China, because that's an act of war. And we've got to be very cautious. I don't want to overplay this, but as you pointed out, Emily, this is frightening. If they're going to biologically mess with our food supply, we cannot sit back and take this.
No, you have to act, and I'm confident the commander-in-chief would act in an appropriate fashion. You know, Kaylee, when you look at this and the events of this week, and then you look at the policies of the Trump administration, President Trump said, I want to look at visas on college campuses with these individuals who are protesting. And then we get that horrific attack where 8 Jewish men and women are burned because of their religion, a guy who overstayed his visa. Then you had Marco Rubio Thursday say, we're going to look at China visas too. And then you get this. I mean, they've been ahead of the ball game here. And if there's not a footnote to substantiate the policies they're making, if there's not a better one than this, I don't know what will convince people.
Well, and Ari asked what the next step is. The next step is to revoke every single Chinese student visa. Keep in mind, this is the second national security-related incident involving a Chinese visa that we've learned about this week. There was another report earlier this week that a student in the University of Michigan, another Chinese national, fled the country after illegally voting in Michigan's election in November. Yeah. And he apparently voluntarily released his passport before doing so. But this is a pattern of behavior, and we need to keep in mind that China has a law requiring.
All right, man. I'm thoroughly already I'm just fucking sick of it. I'm just sick of it. Just sick of it, man. You know how they say people have black fatigue? Bro, I got everything fatigue, son. I'm so sick of all this bullshit, bro. I'm so sick of it. I mean, you know, like I said, we just duked it out in the tariff circumstance with China. And if they got this 100-year war plan ordeal going on, bro, they probably were just like, you know what? Let's just capitulate for now. Why not? If you're thinking about the long game, bro, fuck it. It's not like we're doing anything about nothing. I feel like things are being mishandled or barely even touched upon nowadays, and everybody gets so distracted so quick with this instant gratification and social networking, no one's paying attention. We don't have to worry about Israel's war. They even said, hey, we can take out Iran by ourselves, even though they were just begging us for the B-2 bunker busters. Ukraine and Russia, fuck them. Let them blow each other the hell out of the water. We need to pay attention to our homeland. We need to hold these people accountable. The rioters held accountable. I don't know what people think it is, but it ain't what you thought it was. It's time to stop fucking around. The FA portion's already happened. It's time to start finding out. And I, for one, patience is a virtue. I would say I'm getting sick of waiting, but I know time's always going to do its thing, one way or the other. So I'm going to just let things play out. But overall, China is still a problem. Stop buying their product on purpose. Yeah, I'm looking at you. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I know I got some China stuff on, but a lot of the stuff was purchased before, and everything else, shit, I try to get American all day, every day, which way. You know what I'm saying? But I love you guys. Make sure you support the country in whatever way you can. Be blessed and stay so.